All right, thanks everybody who joins us today on a Sunday. Welcome back to the Krueg Show on a Sunday. Larry Krueger joined by Kyle Posey. Ryan Smith will be in the house at some point as well. 49er minicamp a week old, and the news of the day is that Deebo Samuel has signed his contract. It's a 3-year deal, $71.55 million, includes $58.1 million in guaranteed. He's the seventh wideout of this offseason to sign a deal worth at least $24 million. And that, before the year, only DeAndre Hopkins of the Cardinals had hit that mark. Before we get into all the particulars on week one from camp, we welcome in Kyle Posey, the managing editor of Niners Nation. Kyle, what did you think of the Deebo deal? Oh, we're not hearing Kyle.
First of all, it's a Sunday.
Oh, there we go.
What are we doing working on a Sunday?
I know, seriously, we're going on a Sunday.
This was always going to happen, right? Think about it. The 49ers, they were going to have their pads on Monday. They've done their deals between essentially the second week of July when the third week of July when Fred Warner got extended, up through the middle of August when George Kittle got his extension. And naturally, Deebo falls in the middle of that, despite everything that, a lot of the media talked about, or whether it's him scrubbing his IG, whether it was the videos that we saw saying that Deebo's not going to come back, just fans panicking that Deebo was never going to come back. I think a lot of people knew that was never really the case. So I think that his deal is pretty on par with what was to be expected, right? I think the most surprising part about his deal, though, was you're seeing other guys get 4 and 5 years where Deebo gets 3. And I think that is important just because of his age compared to some of the other guys. So he's going to have a chance to earn another deal. So if he stays healthy, he has a chance for another hefty payday when the salary cap's going to be higher too.
I guess the thing that surprised me was that the Deebo signing came before the Garoppolo trade.
Yeah, 100%. So all we heard or all we talked about was how are they going to be able to extend Deebo when Jimmy's under contract? We never talked about, Jimmy's guaranteed money for next year doesn't come into play until week one. So the 49ers were always aware of that. I guess a lot of it just goes to show you how out of touch us in the general public are as compared to, what the 49ers know, what's going on behind closed doors.
Yeah. As far as Deebo, he was unique. I mean, he is a unique weapon. This year, became the first player, I think, in the third in the history of the NFL, first player in a long time to have at least 1,000 yards receiving, and then 5 receiving touchdowns and 5 rushing touchdowns, all in the same year. What do you think from the 49er fan perspective? How is Deebo, or how are the Niners and their usage of Deebo, do you think, how are they going to look different this year from last year?
I mean, just real quick, speaking of everything you just mentioned and how some fans kind of turned on him this offseason, thinking that he was going to go somewhere else and try to make it sound like Deebo was a system player or it only happened because Shanahan. Think about that. So he had essentially 1,700 yards from scrimmage, and all those receiving yards came on 3 or 4 routes, whether it was screens, slants. I don't think much of that's going to change. I think we're going to see him where he's not going to have, 15, 20 carries a game, but he's still probably going to be heavily involved underneath. Everything that we're seeing through the first week of training camp, those underneath routes to Ray McCloud, those are going to be now to Deebo. And I think what I like, we're seeing them take shots with Ray McCloud in the Deebo role or in the assumed Deebo role. So that's going to be something to keep an eye out, as opposed to, last year they were trying to go out of their way to get the ball in his hands right away. This year, I think they're going to have an opportunity to use him more down the field, which is only going to be better for him.
I don't think they're going to use him as much between the tackles as a runner. I did think it was interesting. There was a wide, variety of answers when you ask people the question, how much guaranteed money is he going to get? The top wide receiver, I believe, is getting, the top wide receivers, I think, we're getting right around 70 million guaranteed. I was speculating that he would get between 55 and 60 million guaranteed. And I feel vindicated here because he gets 58.1. But there were other people that I talked to as late as, this week at training camp who thought that he would get far less guaranteed, like maybe 30 million guaranteed. When you see the terms, 71.5 million 3-year deal, but the big number is the 58.1 million guaranteed. What's your takeaway?
Yeah, and we've seen this, whether it was DK Metcalf or whether it's AJ Brown. We'll have the real, or I guess, the actual numbers on the contract. So I think what we're seeing now is like DK Metcalf ended up getting 31 million. AJ Brown ended up getting 40 million. So I think there is still a chance that he does make more guaranteed than those two. But what Schefter and what Rap Sheet generally tend to tweet out right away is, the best possible numbers, the max value numbers, I guess is the easiest way to put it. So I don't think we're out of the woods yet on whether, or just knowing if he ended up making more than those other two. But I think with him being last, it's a pretty good sign that he will be.
I'll tell you the thing that jumped out at me from the first day of camp when I saw him out there was just that he's in great shape. Deebo, he's a guy that's built kind of thick. And if you see him at times, you think, wow, he looks kind of thick, but that's just his natural build. I just saw him walking around, at practice. He wasn't even out there in the field, but that was one of the things I had on my to-do list. Look at Ayuk, look at Deebo, see what kind of condition they were in. And just from just the layman's view, as far as, just watching him walk around the field, both those guys look like they showed up in terrific shape.
Oh, 100%. I noticed that. I think I said that to somebody that was at practice. Just he looks, I don't know if toned is the right word, but you can see when a guy comes in at any position, whether he took care of himself during the offseason. It's pretty evident that Deebo's working his butt off because he does look like he's in shape. And I think he's going to hit the ground running pretty fast. And it's important that he does get in there and build that rapport with Trey Lance. What are your initial takeaways? I guess if we want to do you want to keep going Deebo, or do you want to take it to training?
Let's do this. Let's roll. We'll put ourselves in the corner here and we'll roll the camp video because we've got a lot of what we're calling B-roll here from camp. Basically, what you're going to see here in video is just what we've gathered over the last 4 or 5 days at camp, and you were down there all this week as well and got a chance to see a lot of this stuff. We start with a slow motion pass of Trey Lance, but we'll work in a bunch of stuff. But what was your takeaway from, your primary takeaways from being down in Santa Clara the first week of training camp?
I mean, if we're talking about Trey Lance, the quarterback, and just that video is a good one. When his release point is consistent, when everything is consistent, his accuracy is on par, and he looks like he's going to be a special quarterback. When the ball sails, when the ball kind of gets away from him, I think it's just because he's not releasing the ball where he's used to releasing the ball. And I don't know if it's something new that he's been working on this offseason, but I think the more that practice goes on, the more the practice goes along, the better that he gets. And I think that's a great sign for the 49ers. And we're all tweeting out, his completion numbers and how many times he's thrown. But I think it's more about where he's throwing the ball. We're seeing a big dose of downfield throws, and that was not the case last year. I could probably count on just my hand alone how many times they threw a slot fade last year. And we saw one in last practice to George Kittle, and that was for a big play down the sideline. So I think we talked about this a little bit. There's going to be a lot of variance in the offseason, but that's going to be offset just by the big plays that not only they attempt, but they make. So that was my big takeaway, at least as far as Trey Lance and the offense goes early on. What about you? What'd you think?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I know there are people that felt like Trey had 2 or 3 of his worst practices, and I just think that we're really grasping as a media for meaning in these practices. There was a great cut or a great moment in the conference room afterwards when Charvarius Ward came in, and somebody, and I don't remember who it was, and it's not really important, but somebody asked him a question about, the one-on-ones or going up against a certain receiver, or somebody quoted to him the interception stat. Yeah. Do Charvarius, today was the 6th interception we've seen from, and he immediately is like, he just like kind of bats it away and is like, it's training camp. And it's like, we love the NFL as a media, as sports fans in this country, and it comes sometimes in the middle of kind of a somewhat dormant time. It's after the NBA Finals. Baseball's just kind of going through the thing. They're going to be playing every day until October. So there's not a lot of urgency. So football is like everything, and people are just waiting for camp to start, waiting for Trey to report, waiting to see what happened with Jimmy, waiting to see what happened with Deebo. And it's just like, because you're waiting and there's a lot of anticipation, man, that's my fat finger, by the way, over the lens right there. Because everybody's waiting, I think it's just like we have this intensity that really, especially early in training camp, is out of place and doesn't belong or jive with the actual tempo of the sport. So I just think there's an awful lot of people who want to make evaluations in day one. How do they look? How does Trey look? And I read one day I read this. I thought, I'm at practice. I'm watching it. I felt like Sudfeld looked totally ordinary. Like I watched the entire practice where I didn't feel like he did anything of substance. And somebody tweeted out as I looked at my phone, Sudfeld was 11 for 11 today.
No shot.
And I'm thinking to myself, those were extended handoffs. That was like me. That would be like 84 throwing it to 22 in this video.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, these guys are literally standing right next to each other. A little check down to the back with no coverage.
Tells you nothing, right?
I mean, that should not be counted as a completion in the NFL by any stretch.
That's my biggest issue. Like the other day, he went 8 for 14. A couple people had more attempts. I'm not counting the attempts where Nick Bosa taps him on the butt because he sacked him. I'm not counting the attempts that take 5 seconds to go just because, the line couldn't block or whatever. But at the same time, him going 8 for 14 tells you nothing because some of those completions, Brandon Ayuk had to make a spectacular catch. On other completions, like, for example, TDP had one, Jimmy Ward broke it up. That's not on the quarterback, but it goes down as an incompletion. So we're learning nothing by just saying, hey, this guy threw this many passes and he completed this many passes. We have to add context. Like 4 of those were down the field and explosive play. So that matters, where these passes are being attempted, where these passes are being thrown. And I think it's pretty evident that Shanahan wants to make a shift to throwing outside the numbers and down the field. And that's what will make this team more dangerous. But you get none of that when you talk about just completion numbers.
Yeah, I mean, training camp stats.
In July, by the way.
It's almost like NFL contract stats. The only number that really matters in an NFL contract is the guaranteed dollars. That you could sign guys for 11 years and $900 million, but if $5.75 are guaranteed, then that's really the important thing. And the same thing with camp stats. You could have any stat you want, but ultimately it just comes down to how did the guy look, there's just so many factors that stats just don't apply. So stats aside, what did you think from watching Trey this week?
So I think that, again, he has to be more consistent as far as where he's releasing the ball and just his mechanics in general. There are times where his shoulders aren't married to his lower body, so that's why the ball is kind of all over the place. I think once he gets that consistent, like once he knows where he wants to throw the ball, whether it's like arm angle wise or where his feet are located, that's when we're going to see, a big time quarterback. But it's going to take time at the same time. We have to understand that this guy hasn't played in a while and he's still very, very young. And this is all new, whether it's, reading the defenses or just turning his back, whatever Shanahan's asking of him. So consistency is going to be a thing. But I think I'm very impressed by his ability to go through his reads, his ability to hang in the pocket. He has better pocket presence than Nate Sudfeld does by a long shot. I can tell you that. He doesn't drop his eyes. He's keeping his eyes down the field when there are bodies flying around him. So I think that bodes well for the 49ers. And again, you can tell whether it's warm-ups and he's airmailing the ball. By the time we get to period 10 in team and he's converting all his third downs, I think he clearly gets better as practice goes on, which is what you want to see, right? The more reps that he gets, the better he plays. So that's what I've been taking away. But there's no doubt there has been some accuracy concerns, and he's had a couple of Jimmy G specials, like the Fred Warner interception the other day, where he kind of threw it right to him.
Yeah, I'm looking for repeated mistakes and correcting mistakes so you don't make them repeated, over and over and over again. As we welcome Ryan Smith into the stream, Ryan filmed a lot of this stuff that you're seeing as far as B-roll from training camp. Ryan, good to see you. We're talking Niners and we're talking Trey Lance off the start. We already talked a little bit about Deebo and the new contract. If you're just tuning in, Deebo Samuel, 3 years, $71.5 million extension, $58.1 million guaranteed. He's the seventh wideout this offseason to sign a deal worth at least $24 million per year. It's hard to get what we're looking at right here in this video is this is kind of a meaningless drill, but you got a lot of Drake Jackson here off to number 95 off to the right. What did you think of Jackson? What did you guys think of Jackson? Kyle, start with you. This was like kind of the first I got a chance to see him. He seemed a little leaner and in better shape than minicamp. But that's really hard to even discern until you see the pads and watch him move out there. But what did you think of the 49ers' highest draft choice? I was going to say a first, but he was actually a second round pick, Drake Jackson at SC.
I think height-wise, he's smaller than I thought he would be. Maybe I was expecting him to be a little bit bigger. Maybe that's just compared to some of the monsters that they have, the other monsters that they have along the defensive line. So maybe that's not a fair comparison. But he's been pretty consistently running with the threes and even the twos. He makes plays every now and then. He got a sack the other day on Saturday. So it seems like he's starting to flash. But I think the fact that he is kind of buried tells you, what their plans are and how they're going to kind of slow roll him. If we're listing some of the top 5 performers along the defensive line, I don't think that he would be one of them. So I don't know if that's kind of an indictment on him or just telling you how some of the other guys along the defensive line are playing.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I think Larry and I've been talking about that. That's one of the biggest questions for us is like, who's going to end up on this line, especially now that Armstead's gone. At least for just for preseason, but it's going to get it's going to give an opportunity for a bunch of guys to try and shine and break through. And I just don't know who. It looks like Drake Jackson is like a year away from being a year away to me personally. But.
Well, I mean, they do have are they leaning on him? I guess you could say they are, but they do have 4 or 5 other guys at his spot that all could theoretically jump right in front of him in line, and nobody would make a big deal about it. To me, if somebody said to me at the grocery store yesterday, he's like, you've been down at training camp this week, and I'm like, yeah, and he's like, so what's the big story? What's the big surprise? And I started thinking about it, and I'm like, well, and what I gave him was, and tell me if you guys would agree with this, if you were asked the same question, hey, what was the big story? What was the big surprise? This is maybe a little football esoteric, but to me, everything starts with the offensive line. Spencer Burford running with the ones at right guard, to me, was kind of like I don't know if it was the big story, but it was the big surprise, and that's a pleasant surprise. That means that they did their evaluation of the offseason. They did their evaluation of the minicamp, and either it's a negative statement about Jake Brendel, the center, because Brunskill is now getting run at center, or it's a strong vote of confidence for Spencer Burford, who I did see according to Kyle Shanahan, he said that University of Texas San Antonio has a similar offense to what the Niners run, and they really like Burford and feel like he's a natural scheme fit for what they do. He's very versatile, Kyle. He's played both guard spots, both tackle spots. Body-wise, he's definitely got an NFL body, even though he might be a little on the lean side for a guard. What did you think of Burford being in there with the ones at right guard? And do you think that's the way we're going to see this offensive line start, with maybe a rookie starting at right guard?
Yeah, I actually asked Kyle the other day what he thought about Spencer Burford, because judging by where he's playing right now and how many reps he's getting there, it seems like they want him to win the position, right? Like, it seems like they are planning on Spencer Burford to be the starting right guard. Of course, we're a long way away from that being cemented, but they like his athleticism. They like his pass protection skills. And I think, as you said, one of the things that Shanahan was hammering home is just like the scheme fit. So easy transition to what they're asking their players to do. When you can kind of come in and know the playbook and know whether you're a zone guy. So for Burford, that's going to be a lot easier. So I think just knowing all that, and still, we've seen him go up against the 49ers defensive line, and he has been having some moments, but the flashes are kind of few and far between at this point. And I guess that's to be expected because there's only so much you can take away without having the pads on. But he does have to play better if he's going to start. So far, I would say that the defensive line, whoever's going against him, have been one-upping the first team offensive line quite a bit.
Right. What do you think of going with the rookie at guard? I mean, essentially what we're looking at is almost two rookies, right? It's Banks, who essentially is a rookie, and then you have Burford. And, could they go with two rookie guards in front of technically a rookie quarterback, and maybe go with Brunskill at center as the veteran between them and get away with that? What do you think, Ryan, of at least week one of the O-line?
I mean, I got to say, it's tough for me to, try and break down the O-line when everything's going on. And, I'm trying to look at Trey, I'm trying to look at everybody else. But just the fact that he was out there and he was pretty much, there was a couple guys that were interchanging at center, a couple guys interchanging at guard. He was pretty much, for the most part, out there the entire time. And as a rookie, and kind of he's a guy that we talked about after the draft. He's intriguing just because of how well they ran the ball. I mean, he's got like legitimate NFL size. So, I mean, the fact that they have this much confidence to put him out there, it just makes me think that he's going to be a player. And, my question is, so were they doing this with Banks last year to start out, or was he or not?
No.
Absolutely not.
No.
Okay, so Banks, I agree with you on Banks. And I was listening to Michael Lombardi talk about, he was talking about the guard position, breaking down who's like the blue chip, red chip guards in the league, in his opinion. And, I thought of Banks because he was talking about how, the good teams, they don't wait until they have an issue at guard. Like, they're just always drafting guys for they draft a guy this year to, for next year. And I was just thinking of Banks, and I was like, okay, I bet that was the plan. I bet it was always about year two for him.
Well, it's funny. Banks, I think conditioning was a big issue. I think I think he just wasn't anywhere close to NFL condition last year. Let's play a little game in this as we let some of this camp video roll. Give me the one thing that you thought could be a player that you thought looked better than you thought he would look. Give me the one player that you think looks worse than you were hoping he'd look.
I think it has to be Ambry Thomas, man.
Is the guy that looks worse.
Yeah, just because. So, by the way, Charvarius Ward and Emmanuel Mosley look about as good as you can look in shoulders and shorts at this point in training camp. But Ambry Thomas, he had an interception the other day. When he had the interception, I'm seeing people tweeting out like, oh, he's going to have a comeback year. What you don't hear is the receiver fell. So you can't give him credit for that. What else happened in that practice was he gave up a long completion to 17, whom I'm blanking on his name.
17, Malik Turner.
Turner, that's
Malik
right.
Turner.
Yeah, so he gave up a deep catch to Turner, and then he gave up a deep crossing route to Juwan Jennings. And that seems to be kind of consistent over the first few days here, where if they're going to drop back and throw a pass deep without guessing, if you didn't see it, you could probably guess that it's number 20. So he's been giving up plays. Finding the ball has always been a problem for him. And for whatever reason, that just didn't get fixed over the offseason. So that's probably just who he is at this point. I mean, it would be tough for Ambry Thomas for him to go on the field. But I think with some of the additions that they made, I don't think we're going to have to get there. But yeah, I would say Ambry Thomas pretty easily.
Better than you thought. Who was out there that you thought was going to look one way, and then after watching him, you thought, man, he looked a whole lot better than I thought. Anybody?
Oh well, I was going to say honestly, to your point about Ambry Thomas, it was such a stark contrast because kind of the secondary as a whole looked better than I expected. Like I think both Wards may end up being Pro Bowlers this year. And then, Hufanga, he looked as, Larry was telling me, he looked fast and he looked good. And Mosley obviously was great. And I guess if I was to say the one guy that surprised me, it would probably be I always want to say Jordan Matthews. Just because I know Larry was really plugging him from minicamp, and I just didn't I just didn't really get it. I like, old kind of slower receiver now trying to be a tight end, but he looks just really fast out there. And also throw out Ray McLeod. Of course, he's going to look great in shorts, but he was running out there with the ones, and I don't know if that was just to take up the Deebo spot or what, but he looked pretty good to me too. So dang fast.
A couple guys on the defensive line is who I would say. So Kevin Givens looks damn good, man. He is probably going to have a lot of snaps, and even more so now that Maurice Hurst is out for the season, which sucks because he does have talent. But I'd say Kevin Givens and quietly Robert Nkemdiche has been making plays, and I know it's with the backups, whether it's second team and third team, but whoever he goes against, he's beating. And the only thing that's going to probably keep him off the roster based on the first week is if he's a knucklehead and can't protect his own teammates, because that's the only time you see him and Shanahan get into it, when he makes a mistake like that. But pretty consistently, Robert Nkemdiche has been in the backfield of the offense.
Yeah, and he's got a ton of talent. And anytime you got a guy with that much talent, with a position coach that's kind of known for his motivational skills, that's always an exciting combination. So Nkemdiche, I think, is a real wild card for sure. Well, I mean, I love Tay Martin. I think the quickness is evident. I really do think he's going to show something. And I've talked about him a few times. But I would say, and I really love Marcelino McCrary-Ball on defense. I just think that he's really active and hyperactive, and I just feel like he's an undersized linebacker with instincts and an angry disposition, and that just makes him a perfect fit for this scheme. So I love the way those guys look as far as no-name guys who are gonna show themselves this preseason. McCrary-Ball on defense and Tay Martin on offense. But I would say better than they looked, worse than they looked. I would say Jeff Wilson Jr. is better than he looked.
I agree.
As far as, he's a big back. He's got his weight down. He looks fast. He looks lean and fast and healthy and primed for a big year. I mean, he really looked good to me. And then Elijah Mitchell, to me, looks he looks like a guy who took a lot of pounding last year and was determined to show up in camp this year thicker and bigger. But is thickness and size his game? I don't know. To me, he just looked like maybe 5 pounds too, not bad weight, more muscle weight. He looked like he's spent a lot of time in the gym, and he looks pretty yoked up. He looks a little stiffer though than a year ago.
He seems like he's running more upright.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of does run upright.
Yeah.
But I mean, he to me, he looks like a guy who's done a lot of upper body. I bet you he's put on 5 pounds of pure muscle in that upper body, and that will help him withstand some hits. But he just didn't quite look as quick as I've seen him look in the past. So that would be kind of one of my concerns with him.
He said that he added weight. He also said that he was trying to get better in the open field. So I guess we'll have to wait and see about the open field. But I agree with you. I'm not so remember, he dropped weight, and I think that was just to run a faster 40 time. And I don't know if he ever kind of recovered from that, just getting used to playing at the weight that he was. But I've never really been high on him in general, and I haven't really seen anything that he does to stand out. If you were just watching the running backs and you didn't know the depth chart, I don't think that you would put him in the top 2. And I don't know if that's too harsh or not, but I do agree with Wilson. And one of the things that I was worried about with Wilson coming off an injury, does he have any juice left? Can he run? And it's pretty evident that he's always been one of their best backs as far as getting north and south, but he can explode. He can have that burst, and he does have that speed to get through the hole. So the running back competition is going to be pretty interesting. I think I'm not so sure that it's going to be Mitchell. And I know he's getting the reps with the ones right now, but even Trey Sermon got a couple reps with the starters a couple days ago, which kind of tells you.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I actually want to ask you, who do you think, because that was one thing that I took away is all the running backs look good. Who would be your first one cut at this point? Would it be Hasty if they're going to run a little more power? And then we've talked about Ty Davis Price looked really good, but he's not running against the ones. But
yeah, I guess I'm just not sure what Hasty does that anybody else could do. So it seems like if they want to throw the ball, and actually Elijah Mitchell said he wants to be the third down back, and that's something he worked on this offseason as well. But Sweet. If they want to throw the ball, it looks like Sermon has the best hands. He's pretty comfortable catching the ball away from his body. Quietly, man, Jordan Mason has some nice runs.
Oh.
I don't see how you could leave him off. But, I mean, between him, Mitchell, Wilson, TDP, they have a bunch of guys. So it's really going to come down to whoever gets the most opportunities during the preseason and whoever makes the most of those opportunities. So I think it's somebody's going to get the short straw.
Let's hit the chat for a second. We got some people in the chat who want to donate. Hutch Serves Gaming donates $1.99. About damn time they signed Deebo Samuel. Well, we kind of told you when it was going to come.
Wait, did you guys give me like a 15-second breakdown of what you guys think about it? Because I'm sorry I missed that opening.
Well, I mean, I just said that, we've been talking about this for a long time, that I'm surprised that they were able to get it done without trading Jimmy first.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit of a surprise, but they found a way to wiggle it around and make the money work. And so because of that, they probably maintain or maybe even gain a little leverage on the Garoppolo trade talks, I would imagine, because now nobody's, if you're of the belief like I was that they couldn't re-sign Deebo, they wanted to get him out there. If you're a believer that they had to make this move pre-Deebo, well, now, so much for that. I also said that, I thought it would be, a deal that would get done right about the beginning of camp and that it would be between 55 and 60 million guaranteed. I didn't think you'd get the record setting, 75 million guaranteed or anything like that for a receiver. But then I had people this week, literally a couple practices ago coming up to me saying, I think it's going to be more like 30 or 35 million guaranteed. So, I think Deebo gets Ty Davis Price and Danny Gray and a little bit of a load off of his plate as far as running between the tackles. And then he also gets more guaranteed. And that, at the end of the day, I think is going to make him happy. And I don't think he was ever unhappy. And I think the 49ers always loved him. I think this whole thing was just a product of, I'm going to play as hard as I can, do whatever you tell me to do. And then, wait a second, it's time for my contract negotiation. All right, Prague, get with my agent. And then when things went terribly, terribly wrong, I'm sure, that's when the agents started saying, hey, we got to play some hardball here because Prague's a hell of a negotiator. And so that's what it is. I think, the initial offer was probably 35 million guaranteed. And, we want to use you anyway we want to use you. And we're a little unsure because we use you as a running back. Then the agent pushes back and says, hey, stop using him as a running back. Pay my guy. He wants to be closer to 70. All right. Now he gets 58, and I think everybody's happy. So that's my takeaway. Kyle, go ahead, restate your Deebo thought.
Yeah, no, I think everybody's happy is the real conclusion here. So in Deebo's case, he gets his guaranteed money. He gets to see the tweet where, hey, I got as much as some of the top wide receivers. So I think he's actually going to come in motivated because of that. Maybe he comes in with a chip on his shoulder. Who knows? But I also think that, we're kind of seeing the 49ers protect themselves. And we're going to find out a lot about this contract, whether it's on Monday or Tuesday when Over the Cap comes out with the details of when they can get out of the contract, because a 3-year deal kind of tells me the 49ers are protecting themselves from any injury. So I bet there's some injury clauses in here. And they're kind of telling Deebo, hey, if you do what you think you're capable of doing, 3 years from now, you can get yourself another nice little contract. So that's why I think everybody's happy, but he's going to be in a great position. He's surrounded by a ton of talent on offense. So he ideally, he would be able to put up another just crazy season like he did last year.
I thought it was just a super reasonable contract. And the thing that surprised me the most is it's almost identical to the DJ Metcalf contract. And I know I believe they share the same agent. It's actually so close. DK was 3 for 72. Deebo was 3 for 71.55. So like a $500,000 difference in total. And then as far as the practical guarantees, DK was 58.2 and Deebo was 58.1. So it's basically the same exact thing with $100 less. And as far as per year, Cooper Kupp only got 3 years, 80, but he got 75 mil guaranteed. And as far as guaranteed per year, I think it's super reasonable, especially since it's only a 3-year deal.
Riddy Musich donates $4.99 to the chat. He says, love the exclusive footage you guys got going during the broadcast. This season's going to be a wild, fun year. Go Niners. Yeah, I mean, this is a combination of me and Ryan getting some stuff, and we have actually more than this, but this was just what we're bringing to the table today. 49er George 365 donates $19.99 and just says, cheers, fellas. All right, George, appreciate you jumping into the chat. Guys, let's jump before we get to some of these audio clips that I think are kind of interesting. I want a couple thoughts on this one. Niner defensive line. You know, it's funny. If you say starting pitching in baseball or pitching in general, you say, well, you can never have enough, right? You can never have enough pitching. And in football, it's really, you can never have enough D linemen or running backs, because running backs get hurt, D linemen get hurt. When you can't run the ball, you got problems. When you can't rush the quarterback, you got problems. The Niner defensive line depth last year was incredible, and yet they still had to pick up guys like Charles Omenihu, and we've seen Jordan Willis. I mean, you can never have enough. It seems like they always need to add. Now this week they lose Mo Hurst. The defensive tackle suffered a torn biceps Friday in practice. He's going to need surgery. His season's done. So that's a bad break. Hurst is likely going to miss almost the rest of the year. It's another blow to the Niner defensive line. It was a very deep line on paper, but, we already referenced Eric Armstead's going to miss a few weeks with a sprained right knee. Shanahan also noted on Saturday that Hassan Ridgeway has a mild quad strain, and he's down a couple weeks. So that means he might miss the opener of the preseason. So no Hurst, no Armstead, no Ridgeway. The Niners did sign Robert Kemdiche, who Kyle mentioned before, and then another guy, Tomasi Lolele, in the last couple of days. Lolele's interesting. He played at BYU. He's got a lot of speed for sure. Kemdiche's got a ridiculous amount of talent, though. I think he threw somebody to the ground the other day and got a little roasted for it. Somebody was like, "Hey man, that's not our culture here." I forget exactly who was getting in his face, but what do you think about the D line? Is there any concerns, Kyle, that we haven't even gotten to the preseason game number 1, and the D line that's lost Street, already lost DJ Jones, already lost Arden Key, and now they're down 2 or 3 more guys? Are you concerned?
I don't think there's anything to worry about as far as Eric Armstead, and he made sure to let people know that it's not that serious. So he'll be back. And honestly, we don't really need to see what he can do at training camp. He's one of their best players. He proved that down the stretch last year. If anything, it'll allow some of the other guys to get more reps. I thought what was interesting was as soon as Armstead went down, instead of putting another traditional defensive tackle in there for him, they put Charles Omenihu there. So they want to keep that hybrid, defensive end, defensive tackle inside. That way they can have their athletic advantage and just have, some of their best players on the field. So that stood out to me. I really am not worried about the depth. I mentioned how Kevin Gibbons and Kemdiche have been standing out. They still have, that space eater nose plug guy in Hassan Ridgeway, who's been fine as well. Ebukam, Bosa at the top. If Kinlaw plays with the type of energy that he did on Saturday, they're going to be great. We got to see, what he can do, if he can stay healthy through the season. But essentially they're betting on Javon Kinlaw to be DJ Jones. So if he can be that, Armstead stays healthy, I really don't have any worries about the rest of the defensive line. And I didn't even mention Kerry Hyder, who's also and their freaking second round pick. So they have plenty of names to throw at you still, despite some of these other guys going down.
One of the things that's pretty clear is now with the Deebo signing, you got the core pretty much under contract. Trent Williams under contract through 2026. Armstead locked up through next year. Kittle's under contract through 2025. Fred Warner through 2026. Now Deebo through 2025. I mean, they've locked up their foundational players of the future outside of Bosa. For the most part, they're getting their guys locked up, which is a good thing because they got some really good football players on this team. Before we play a couple of these quotes, I want to get your thoughts on one that we're not going to play for you. I'm just going to kind of restate. When Nick Bosa came to the podium, he was talking about Trey Lance, and he basically just said, hey, as long as, we got a good team, we can run the ball, we got a really good defense, we got a number one corner now in Charvarius Ward, we're better on the back end. And he pretty much said, unless Trey just turns it over in mass, we're going to be pretty damn good. What did you think, of that quote from Bosa, Kyle, as far as he basically was like, unless Trey just turns it over left and right, basically almost like a message through the media to the quarterback. Don't worry about being perfect. Just take care of the football.
I took it as, I know our defense is pretty damn good. That's not going to change. And if Trey just doesn't turn the ball over, as you said, I think he thinks that Jimmy didn't do a lot last year. And, that's obviously we can get into that, but I think in Bosa's mind, if Trey just kind of is steady, just, again, doesn't have these crazy turnovers, isn't wildly inconsistent, the 49ers are going to be good because they have so many freaking good players. We haven't talked about their linebacking core, who a lot of people believe are the best in the NFL. Obviously, Charvarius Ward looks like an all-pro early on, but they have two legitimate corners. And that's going to allow D'Amico Ryans to be way more aggressive, which he wasn't allowed to be down the stretch last season. And remember, the first half of the season, in my mind, is Kyle Shanahan kind of fine-tuning and working the kinks out of the offense. So I think by the time they get things clicking in the second half, it would be tough for this team not to win double-digit games if they don't stay healthy.
What do you think, Krueg?
It's similar to what Kittle said. I think it might have been at Tight End U, or maybe it was on the McAfee show, but he essentially said the same thing. Like, look, our team's talented enough to withstand, some struggles and setbacks from Trey. I think everyone's hoping by the end of the year that, the reps and the game experience is just going to make him, entering the playoffs. He's going to be good enough that they're a viable Super Bowl contender. The one thing outside it's the turnovers, and then I just don't want to see any, because as far as I'm concerned, like the inaccurate passes or just incompletions, quick series, like, 2 incompletions and, run the ball for 3 yards. Like, I don't want that either. That's another thing I'm a little worried about. It's just like, our defense is great, but it did seem a few times in those 2 Trey games that I'm not putting a huge amount into, but we were putting almost too much on our defense. Like, we weren't playing complimentary football. We were kind of immediately, it was like Trey gets ball, boom, 1, 2, 3 and out. Okay, now back defense has to grind. So I just want him to play within himself. It's like a golf swing or something, right? Like, I was golfing yesterday and I was playing like crap. And then I was like, you know what, Ryan, just hit it like 70% and just don't really worry about the distance. And then I started playing way better. That's what I want from Trey. Just keep it simple.
I would say, as far as, one of my takeaways from just watching the first week with the overall team is that the secondary, if it's the first team secondary that's out there for a good portion of the year, the 49ers are going to be much improved back there. Hufanga gets better, and you can tell just how serious he is. He's the first guy on the field. He's working crazy. He's talking about his timing. He's just improving. He's going through every possible nuance of the game and perfecting his craft, while also kind of rounding out his body to be more of an NFL body. So I think he takes off this year at strong safety. And then you have Ward at free safety. You got Charvarius at one corner and Emmanuel Mosley at the other corner. Mosley looks terrific. And some of the young corners, I thought Deommodore Lenoir looked pretty good this week. And if you'd told me that Quantrez Knight and Womack and these guys were going to be factors, I would not be surprised. They look like they could be factors. We have to really see it in the preseason, but that first team secondary of Hufanga, Ward, and Mosley, Really, really looks good to me. Let's hear from Hufanga here first. We got 3 cuts I want to play for you guys from the media sessions after camp this week, and they came on different days. One day, Talanoa Hufanga took to the mic, and he was asked about Trey Lance. And how he's progressed in the eyes of Hufanga. And I thought his answer was particularly interesting. Here is a little Talanoa Hufanga talking about Trey Lance.
Man, he's just freaking, he's incredible. Being around him, I get to talk to him each day. The intent that he brings into the building, first people in, last people out, the guy that he just works. When you see it on the field, we always chirp at each other when we're walking by because we know what kind of day it is. We want to work, and so the competition on the field is just amazing. He can do anything, any throw that you need to ask from him, he can do it. So testament to who he is as well. So I'm very grateful just to be on the same field as him.
Yeah, a lot of respect there from Hufanga to Lance, but I just the fact that I can sit there and say to Kyle on a live stream or to Ryan on a live stream, you know what? My scouting friends tell me that Trey Lance loves the process, but it's not quite the same until you hear it directly from the players. But that essentially verifies that statement. He's the first guy in and he really works, and they've got this rivalry and they're kind of going back and forth, and you can see there's like a mutual respect society going on between Hufanga and Trey, because in a lot of ways Hufanga is on the defensive side what Trey is on the offensive side. Hard worker, very conscientious, loves the process, wants to be perfect, will work to get better every single day. So to me, some people would say, well, what do you expect him to say? Right. That's always the counter. But to me, most of these guys are more honest than you think. And a guy like Talanoa, who's got, he works really hard and reps everything mentally and physically so religiously that if Trey weren't in that same category, you know what I mean? He wouldn't have said what he just said there. To me, that was a verification of Trey's work ethic, leadership, and just the fact that he does indeed love the process of pro football.
I think they're all kind of putting into perspective. Like we saw Kittle the other day say he's getting better every day. And remember, he's going against an elite defense. And I think that's something that important that we have to remember, that he didn't have Trent Williams. He didn't have Deebo Samuel. So naturally, he's not going to look as good as he will next week, a month from now, 2 months from now. And again, that's what we just want to pay attention to, is just his process and how he gets better. But I think it's pretty important to point out that where any of his teammates, whether it's on the offense, on the defense, whatever position it is they play, they do have a mutual respect. And I think they can see, they understand what they're dealing with. They understand the talent who's under center. So they see the plays that he makes and what he's capable of. And I think that's why they have his back. It is pretty cool just to see them consistently, no matter who is under center, kind of have the quarterback's back.
Right, you got a thought on all the different people that we heard this week respond, and talk about Trey Lance? It seems like almost every player that hits the media room, it's like, here's a question about yourself, here's a question about the team, here's a question about your position group. Oh yeah, and what do you think of Trey Lance?
No, look. For the most part, I do feel like these guys are being honest. Like, I think Trey's a great guy. It seems like he's a great guy, super hard worker. I really think that's the reason. That's what flipped things for Shanny and Lynch. In addition to all the physical craziness, the guy's just a hard worker and seems to get along with everybody. And I mean, that was a tough deal with Jimmy the first year, and I just feel like he has the personality to be the guy. I think he's going to be the guy. I think people see that the flashes are like, I'm sure they impress everybody on the field. The only thing I'm just worried about, I just don't want people to think that he's going to be, a top 5 MVP candidate or something this year. Like, just let the kid kind of do his thing. He's going to progress throughout the year. And I think everybody's confident. And I think that's just sort of common knowledge in that building. It seems like it's like he's going to have his struggles, but man, flashes are crazy. And he's a leader already. And yeah,
Ryan Clark from ESPN was talking about this, and ESPN is always there. It's always hilarious. It's like, let's get some intern in the back room and let's figure out the most negative angle we can come up with and just drop it in the lap of our analysts. And they're like, with Jimmy, with Trey Lance being their quarterback and then moving on from Jimmy, doesn't Trey have to lead them to the NFC Championship game or it's a bad year? Trying to get Ryan Clark to say that, and Ryan Clark kind of pushed back and he said, you know what Trey Lance has to do, it doesn't have to lead him to the NFC Championship game this year. He just needs to show that the Super Bowl window's open and that he's got high end potential and that he's going to be able to elevate this team over time. It doesn't necessarily have to be in year one. Would they love it to be in year one? Sure. But more than anything, it's not about do you get to the NFC Championship game or the Super Bowl. It's about do the Niners get the right guy, and is he the kind of talent that's going to be able to do more over time than what Garoppolo had done with his skill set? Let's hear from Charvarius Ward. I thought Ward had a great cut this week, and we just a couple more with you, Kyle, before we let you go.
I know that the pads don't go on until Monday, but do you feel the pressure that the D-line is bringing? I mean, are you guys benefiting from that?
Oh, yeah. The D-line, those boys, like, I feel like we got 10 or 12 starters on our D-line. Like, all those boys, like, they come and pass rush, run, stopping. Like, those boys, they some dogs.
Yeah, I mean, I love the way he said it, but really my takeaway there is just here's a guy that was in another camp, right? So he might not even know any of these guys, and he's like, hey, I feel like there's like 10 starters here, and that's the Niner D line right there. Ebukam, Armstead, Kinlaw, Bosa, I think Givens, Ridgeway, Amenahue, maybe Kemdiche, maybe Teray. I mean, all these guys really are NFL starting caliber players. They just happen to be, going to play in a rotation. Some are going to be the twos, some are going to be the threes. Heck, maybe one or two of these guys gets cut. But this is an enormously deep line. And if you don't believe me, believe Charvarius. And a corner's best friend is, a deep defensive line rotation that moves that quarterback off the spot. Kyle, when you hear him talk about 10 deep on that line, you can see, that's. If you're a corner, man, a deep defensive line is like the greatest thing you could ever dream of.
Yeah, I mean, if you didn't know any better, Charles Amenahue and Kevin Givens and Robert Kemdiche all look like starters. So there's three others aside from the starting four. And then Drake Jackson, who is their second-round pick, and they're probably going to play Kerry Hyder a lot. And when Armstead went down, and I mentioned how they plugged into Amenahue, they've been using Jordan Willis with the first teamers as well. So, like, there's 10 guys right there. And I think in Ward's case, he understands that with this defensive line, he's going to be able to play a lot more aggressive. And you're seeing that aggressive coverage. And that's why every game or every practice so far, he's got his hands on one of the throws. So Ward is going to love this defensive line probably more so than anybody. So you can tell his intensity just from his answer. Like, he knows he's in a great spot.
Yeah, no question about it. Rye, you got a thought on the Niners, on Ward's confidence? It seems like Ward gave them a shot in the arm by showing he could be this like press man corner this week, but also, he sounds very impressed by what's up front on this Niner D.
Yeah, I mean, just hearing Ward talk and being in the room with him, the guy he's just not a BSer. He's very direct and. Yeah, I mean, I think he's probably just so stoked to be. I think that it doesn't seem like we've had many. We don't get a lot of interceptions. It seems like these past couple of years, it seems like we're not getting. We're getting fumble, but it seems like we're not getting like this crazy amount of turnovers. I know turnovers are a lot of luck, but man, I'm really expecting the turnovers to spike this year. I think the Niners are going to be gobbling up interceptions.
Yeah, that is a great point, actually, Kyle, that Ryan just made there. I mean, when you think about a team that has put the kind of resources that the 49ers have put into their defensive line, you would think that they would affect quarterbacks to a greater extent than they do. And as Ryan just referenced there, you would think they would pile up turnovers. And I don't know if it's just because Ward and Tart don't have great hands and they've been the safety tandem. If you want to put it all on them, but man, they don't get a lot of picks for, considering they've got Nick Bosa and maybe one of the NFL's 2 or 3 deepest defensive fronts in the entire sport.
I think, interceptions probably isn't the most fair way to go about it, but it is a fact. And they do have guys who you would probably think would be able to make more plays. But I think what stood out to me over the past couple of years is, especially over the couple plays that have been happening the first week, is we haven't seen a lot of tip passes in the air that result in interceptions. Like that's never been a staple of the 49ers defense. That was happening all over the last couple of practices. I know you guys weren't there on Saturday, but a couple of interceptions happened just like that, where quarterback was pressured. Cornerback is in position with the wide receiver, gets his hand on the ball, tips it up in the air, and my guy, who we haven't talked about yet, Tarvarius Ward, comes down with the interception. So I think, if anything, we'll see I guess one thing that I will say is with the defensive line, with the addition of Tarvarius Ward, they're going to be able to just be more aggressive. And now hopefully that lends into, more PBUs, which will obviously lead to more interceptions in turn down the line too.
Yeah. It felt like obviously the D line helps the secondary immensely, but it's felt like our we're kind of like our D line stacked, our linebackers are great, but it's just felt like, our secondary has been sort of patched together with, duct tape. And it's sort of like the pressure that the D-line provides is enough that, our corners don't get beat and they don't give up big plays. And then, they can kind of hide a little bit. But it seems like now they have so much talent in the secondary. And it seems like now they're able to actually take advantage. And instead of going from a poor corner play because of the line, they have been maybe average the past couple of years. Now I think it's like they're going to have the opportunity to take chances. And I'm actually looking. So the Niners last year had 9 interceptions. The Cowboys led the league with 26. Okay.
Yeah, Diggs himself had more than the Niners.
And then in 2020 we had 12. Dolphins led the league with 18. 2019, we had 12. And the Patriots led the league with 25. 2018, we had 2 interceptions. 2. And Bears had 27. Wow. So I know it's not everything, but, you look at the stats when you win or lose the turnover battle, especially if Trey is going to be a little bit loose with it sometimes, and I'm all for it, him taking chances. I think that's going to be freaking huge if we can start just can count on pick a game or
Kyle, you mentioned were you trying to say Tarvarius Moore or Charvarius Ward was the guy we haven't talked about yet?
Yeah, Tarvarius Moore, the safety.
Tarvarius Moore. So what did you think of Tarvarius? Because he's an incredible athlete. He's had some injuries. This is a huge camp for him.
He had 2 interceptions on Saturday, and he looked really good doing them. So the one was where he's just playing the deep center field role, and he turned and ran and pretty much beat the receiver and the cornerback to the spot and came down with the ball. There was another one where it was one of those balls that tipped up in the air, and he came down with one of those. I know it was a layup, like any safety should have done it, but I've seen these 49 safeties drop those same ones. So I'm going to give him credit for that because obviously, as we just talked about, as Ryan just talked about, those interceptions matter. They haven't been making those type of interceptions. So
yeah, game changing.
I think we're going to see a lot more 3 safety looks. Especially on, obvious passing downs on third down. That's something that Saleh did, and that's something that kind of Ryans did last year with Hufanga as a rookie. So if they really do trust Hufanga, I imagine he's going to be patrolling the middle of the field with Ward being a slot type of guy and more the deep guy who kind of protects all the deep passes.
Let's play one last cut for you here, and this is D'Amico. D'Amico Ryans hit the mic earlier in the week, and this is about a 2-minute clip. This is D'Amico Ryans talking at the presser after practice about his newest toy, Charvarius Ward.
You've seen from Charvarius Ward, and has his acquisition kind of upped the level of competition in that defensive backfield?
Yeah, he's come in and done exactly everything we've asked him to do, right? He's competitive. He competes every day. He's always challenging the guys across from him, challenging the guys in the room. So it has raised our competition level in the DB room. And I'm happy to have that. The more competition, I think the better all those guys get. So that's what Charvarius has done. He's raised the level of competition in there, and guys know they have to step up, rise to his level.
You know, was talking just about Charvarius as a press corner. What is it that makes him so good as a press guy?
I think first off, it's just his mindset. Everybody when talk about press corners, his first is the mindset to be able to get up there and press some of the top guys in the NFL. You know, he's done it at a high level, and he's not afraid. He's confident. He has the skill set. He has the athletic ability. He has the speed, the foot quickness to keep up with guys. So that's what makes him a good corner, right? First and foremost is the mindset and the confidence you have to have when you're on the island, right? He has all the confidence he needs to go out and be a dominant corner.
I don't know if this is how you do it at some time or if there's a decision, but would he be a field corner or a boundary corner?
We're not getting into where they're playing. He's a corner for us.
Yeah. There he is, D'Amico Ryan's talking about Charvarius Ward, the big free agent signing. You know, it's funny. I've heard people say, somebody would suggest, hey, the Niners ought to get this corner. And they say, well, the Niners, that guy likes to play a lot of man coverage and the Niners play zone. And it's like the Niners play zone because they have to.
Right.
Nobody plays zone. If you match up, you play man. If you don't match up, you play zone. I mean, there's examples where you play zone even when you do match up, but that's generally the rule of thumb of coverage from college to from high school to college to the pros. If you got the dogs to match up, you play man to man. Otherwise, you're going to try to scheme it up and play some zone and hide some deficiencies. The Niners now have in Charvarius a lockdown press man corner who can play bump and run and get it right up on the line of scrimmage and reroute guys. And I think it's going to give D'Amico, it's going to open up a world of options for backside coverages, and he can get exotic with some of the things that he does because he can mix and match now because he's got a legitimate press man corner who's in his prime and has great size and incredible confidence. Give me your read on how Charvarius changes the game calling ability for D'Amico.
Yeah, I mean, early on here, it's pretty evident that he's one of the best corners that they've had. And I know that sounds pretty premature to say that in July, but it doesn't take long to see a talent that hasn't been here. And I just think his recovery speed is unlike. I think that might be one of his best traits. D'Amico just talked about all the things that he does well, and to be able to play press in this league. First of all, real quick, you talk about the man and zone thing. Ryan's lived in man coverage on third down last year. Like, that's what they did. And even if he didn't really want to, just because that's what he wants to do, he still did. And naturally, there are times where it didn't work out, but these guys live in man coverage, and I can only imagine that's going to go up a few percentage points this year now that he has cornerbacks he can trust. But I think the fact that he can trust Ward, like you said, there will be more exotic looks. There will be even more blitzes. There might be some worries as far as when you get to one-on-ones. There's going to be times where he loses a battle, and that's going to happen. But there are going to be other times where, because he's pressed, because he's in a position, the defense is going to get a sack, or the defense is going to force the quarterback to hold the ball longer. I think that the fact that he just competes is the way that he's been competing has been really impressive. He had a play like Ray McLeod had a step on him on a post the other day, and he caught up within like 2 steps, or he had the 2 steps on him, and he caught up to him, went up top, made the interception. Just plays like that weren't happening the past couple of years at cornerback for the 49ers. You're seeing him look very comfortable in press, and on the other side, Emmanuel Mosley looking very comfortable off man. So they can do a lot of things with 2 cornerbacks, man. I'm pretty excited to see what Ryan's rolls out. I don't think if you remember down the stretch last year, whether it was Tennessee, whether it's Cincinnati, like those receivers were abusing the secondary, and that's not going to be an issue with Charvarius.
We love reading Niners Nation. Tell us what you guys got cooking there this week. And also, let's finish up this live stream with, your guys' thoughts on, tomorrow the pads come on for the first time. What didn't you see in week 1 that you'd like to see, before we get deeper into camp? Is there anything that you're looking to see that you didn't get out of week 1 that you thought, man, I'm not going to be able to evaluate that worth a damn until they put the pads on for real? And then Kyle, before you do any of that, tell us what you got cooking this week on Niners Nation, because I know you guys are all over camp. Yourself, Jordan Elliott, and a number of your writers writing about any number of different angles on breaking down this training camp.
Yeah, so I mean, we're gonna have daily recaps every day, whether it's me covering the offense, Jordan covering the defense. Jordan has something come out tomorrow about how they're gonna account for the loss of Maurice Hurst. We also have some, just 5 questions that we're all looking for in the training camp. I actually spoke to Charveris's college DB coach. He reached out to me asking how he's doing, so I'm gonna try to get an article out of him because he's just loving everything that he's hearing so far. So that's pretty cool. But just to answer your question, as far as what we're looking forward to seeing this week and what we couldn't evaluate last week, it's the offensive line. And these guys are at such a disadvantage without pads on.
Yeah.
Bosa talked about it. Like, you can't really use your power moves. So he's working on the finesse move. So I think we'll have a real idea and understanding of not only the 49ers offensive line and how they are against the pass, but we're going to see them be able to run the ball now. And again, this defense, as much as we're talking about the secondary, this defense was as good as it gets against the run last year. Both Eric Armstead and DJ Jones were the 2 of the better interior defenders against the run last year. So kind of see how what new wrinkles they have in the running game with Trey Lance. Remember, we've seen this past week where we're starting to see more and more designed runs, see if that's going to be a thing. So offensive line and the running game is what I'm looking forward to.
Rye, how about you? What are you looking to see here next week? We'll be down there throughout the week checking it out.
I'd say line play on both sides, defensive and offensive, especially, with the news of all these injuries on the defensive line. I think that's just for sure 100% the battle to look for. And then also, right before we sign off, go ahead and Larry, I want to hear what you have to say as well. But I do have some interesting turnover numbers.
Sure. I'll tell you, to me, when you put the pads on, it suddenly you find out about who really likes to hit on defense is about, do you like to hit, and it's a lot about accountability and desire and want to, and there's a lot of young players that I really want to see on defense and see where exactly they're at. Samuel Womack, Quantrez Knight, Tariq Castro Fields, Leon O'Neal, Taylor Hawkins, Marcelino McCrary Ball, the San Diego State kid who's just a freak athletically, Saguna Luby, Drake Jackson, all those young defensive ends from Ebukam to Amenahue to Kamoko Toure, you name it. I mean, there's a bunch of guys, Jordan Willis. I want to see the speed on defense. I think the Niners have a ton of young players that, they've got some speed, but they also have some players who play fast, who didn't necessarily run fast. And, they're not workout warriors, but they're good football players. So when the pads come on and you start actually playing football, a lot of these guys start to play a little faster than they timed and then they practice because they're instinctive. And I think they've gotten more than a handful of these guys. And I'm really eager to see when the pads come on, who fires on that defensive side, because I think the competition on all 3 levels of the defense as we get closer towards the cut down to 53 is going to be fierce. And there's going to be 2 or 3 guys, 2 or 3 linebackers, 2 or 3 DBs, 2 or 3 D linemen who are cut in this camp and wind up playing, not just playing for another team, but playing a significant role for another team. I think they've got that kind of depth. So I'm looking for the defense. I think there's some open jobs, and I think there's some opportunity, and I think there's a lot of hungry guys with a lot of talent. So that's exciting to me because I think guys are going to be flying around on defense making plays. I really do. I think it's going to be really fun to watch because there's like a dozen guys who have talent, have ability, and they're in this camp. But if they cut the thing down today, they would not make the roster. So they have stuff to prove, and watching them prove it, both in these practices with pads and in the 4 preseason games, I think that's going to be fun to watch. I think it's going to be really fun. Go ahead, Rye. What do you got stat-wise before we call it quits?
So I thought this was really interesting because the Niners have had such, I think, really great defense, but obviously, I've known like the turnovers. It just seems like they don't get that many turnovers. So first of all, this is the stat. So since the Super Bowl era, teams that win the turnover battle go on to actually win the game 77% of the time. Last season, it was 80%. And somehow the Niners were -4 last year. So let me run through. It's kind of insane that they've been as competitive as they have with, not really getting all the turnovers that most of the top teams get. So 2021 last year, they were -4. That was 22nd in the league. 2020, they were -11. That was 31st in the league.
Wow.
2019, the Super Bowl year, they were +4, which was 11th in the league. So that's the only time since Shanahan's been there that they've been in the top half of the league. Then the year before that, 2018, we were -25, 32nd in the league. In 2017, we were -3, 22nd in the league. So
of course you mean they, but yeah, we're working on it.
And that, my friends, is why Deebo Samuel got paid, because
Exactly.
explosive plays hide turnovers. And that's why they talk about Trey Lance the way they do. He just has to take care of the ball, get the ball, hit the wide receivers in stride. Like, Shanahan is a real quarterback. Shanahan is going to get these guys open. It's on him to just hit them. So we've seen over and over and over again so many guys streaking down the field open. Lance is in a very good position.
Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting to watch this, and it's not linear. Nobody goes. I mean, people think of the great quarterbacks and they think, oh, Tom Brady's great. He's always been great. No. Joe Montana was great. He was always great. No. They throw picks. They make mistakes. We just don't remember them over time. It's not a consistent march right to the Pro Bowl. There's bumps along the road. Playing quarterback in the NFL is, what if you said, what's it really about? It's about overcoming adversity. So if that's what playing quarterback's about in the NFL, that just guarantees that there'll be adversity, which is the way the NFL is. There's going to be adversity. So as long as everybody remembers that, that there's going to be some adversity and Trey's going to have to overcome some things. I think it's all about expectation level. Niners have high expectations. High expectations, good. Unreasonable expectations, bad. All right, Kyle, great stuff, man. How long are you in town for? Are you in town for the entire camp, or are you just for a few more days, or how long are we going to see you down in Santa Clara for a week or two, or what's the plan?
I am here for another week, so I'm taking off next Monday, and I don't think the final couple practices are open for the media. So after Dwight Clark Day is when I'm taking off.
Sounds good, man. Always good to wrap Niner football with you, and we're getting closer to the preseason. It'll be here before we know it. Thanks for spending an hour with us on the Krueg Show, and Kyle, we'll absolutely do it again.
Love it. Thanks for having me. It'll be interesting, man. It's going to be a wild year, like one of the donations said. It should be really fun.
No doubt. Kyle Posey from Niners Nation, and we appreciate him for joining us on the Krueg Show. And awesome. Kyle is awesome. I mean, seriously, really, really good resource. All right, let's do this. Let's play. Let's pay the bills. We'll pay our sponsors right here, and then we'll come back. Final word, and then we'll jump over and talk a little Giants baseball on the Krueg Show.
Larry Krueger here for Telmetrics. Thanks to Casey Bateman and the good people at Telmetrics. If you're an occupational therapist, if you're an orthopedic surgeon, a chiropractor, a physical therapist of any kind, Telmetrics is designed for you to use in your practice and will greatly benefit your patients. Telmetrics uses computer vision and artificial intelligence and provides a platform for outpatient rehab therapy services, both in the clinical and the telehealth environments. So using Telmetrics can improve your patient's experience and much more. So for all your sports injury needs, or if you're a physical rehabilitation specialist of any kind, make sure you use telmetrics.co. Telmetrix.co. And thanks to Casey Bateman and all the good people at Telmetrics for being a proud sponsor of the Krueg. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Dan Coach Emilio. Dan is a buddy, and he is a phenomenal retirement planning specialist. And you can contact him today at securemoney.com or at his number, 925-628-9966. There's a lot of uncertainty in our world right now, and you want to make sure that your money is secure. That is the key. Danny's got 25 years of experience, born and raised right here in the Bay Area, and he can help you get an immediate 10% premium bonus on your principal retirement account. So give him a call, 925-628-9966. He'll make an appointment with you, and you can sit down. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of a deal. He'll consult with you and come up with a strategy to get you going to where you want to be. Once again, 925-628-9966, securemoney.com on the web. And thanks to Tony Cassera and the good people at Cassera's Italian Menswear. They are housing the Krueg Show t-shirts, and they're a proud sponsor of the show as well. The Krueg Show t-shirt, the Krueg Show podcast t-shirt is available there at their store in Dublin. Their address is 7372 San Ramon Road in Dublin, California. And go see Tony Cassera and get yourself a Krueg Show t-shirt and support the show. And special thanks to our sponsor, New York Style Italian Sausage. That's right, NewYorkStyleSausage.com is their website. Phenomenal product, whether it's the breakfast sausage, the Italian mild, the Italian spicy, the chorizo. You cannot go wrong with New York Style Italian Sausage. Once again, NewYorkStyleSausage.com. Often imitated, never equaled.
We grew up with a Sunday dinner. That means no matter how busy you were, no matter where the hell you were, you came to dinner on a Sunday night. Yeah, Sunday dinner without sausage, it's like a church without God. You know, how can you go to church if you don't believe in God? You know, and along with the sausage also became the discussions. That was discussion night. You know, it wasn't a typical family that you sit there and you're quiet, you know, and you don't talk with a mouthful. Oh no, man. Italians talk when they're eating. Italians even talk when they're sleeping. And definitely we talk with our hands. So if we can't express it through our mouth, through our lips, we express it with our hands. So, and that's what sausage is, really. It's an expression, you know, that life is good.
All right, welcome back to the Krueg Show. Thanks again to Kyle Posey for joining us for a full hour to recap the first week of 49er training camp. And I want to thank a bunch of people. First of all, I want to thank Ryan Smith, who put together a lot of that video footage. I put together some of that as well. Thanks to Len Dempsey, who put that into a nice, concise 15 minutes of B-roll. And what you got there was, you know, straight from our cameras right to you're right to our YouTube channel, and we'll bring more video this week from practice, more exclusive content from practice.
Look at all this stuff that I have. I just couldn't put it together because I was having internet issues, but this is all untapped footage.
Yeah, we will bring that footage to you, and we'll do more things like what we just did right here, so that we can show off that footage. So we'll have some live streams, and we'll bring, when we talk Niners throughout the week, we will put together another B-roll of camp footage, and you can see, directly all the stuff that we pulled from camp. In addition to that, we're going to hit the podium, for the 3 or 4 or 5 49er players or coaches that the PR staff makes available, and then we'll bring you some of that audio throughout the week. So how do you get closer to the Krueg Show channel? Well, hit like and subscribe if you're a fan of the channel. We would love for you to like our channel and subscribe to it. You can also hit join if you want to be an exclusive member. We're going to be playing fantasy football this year in a league with just people who are exclusive members of our channel. Also, if you're an exclusive member of our channel, we are going to give you the ability to send us your fantasy team, and we'll evaluate your fantasy team both at the beginning of the year individually, and if you want, week to week as you're doing your matchups throughout the year. So, everybody likes to find out, what do you think of my matchups? What do you think of my matchups? Well, if you're a member of the show, we're going to let you put your matchup on video on the screen, and me and Ryan and Dan will break it all down for you and give you our opinions week to week on your fantasy team. So if you'd like to play fantasy football with us, just hit join. Just hit join and be a member of the club. I think it's $4.99 $49 a month. We're going to bring a lot of exclusive content, video, audio-wise, in addition to what we do fantasy-wise, to our exclusive club members. So, and thanks to everybody who's already joined the club. We really do appreciate that. And we will be bringing you more exclusive stuff just for club members as we go. So we got a lot to get to, but overall, I'd say it was a really good first week of 49er camp. There was, no major injuries to speak of. And when I say major, nobody's done for the year, or outside of Mo Hurst, I guess. Mo Hurst is done for the year. But outside of Mo Hurst, they didn't. It was a pretty healthy week of practice, which was a good thing. I thought Trey had a couple good practices. There were some rough practices where the defense definitely looked ahead of the offense. The Niners secondary looks much improved. The Niner offensive line is still very much a work in progress. And then when Trent Williams was not there this week for a couple days dealing with a family matter, if you take Trent Williams off of this line, and then with all the turnover, it's asking Trey to kind of operate against one of the NFL's better defenses in practice with a line that's truly makeshift. So I thought that's kind of what you were seeing. But we saw them challenge down the field a little bit more. Ayuk and Deebo, I think, are going to make more plays down the field. I think Trey's going to throw it down the field. They're really deep in the backfield. There were a lot of positives this week for sure.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree, and I just can't wait to see the guys with pads on, and I can't wait to just see how this thing continues to develop. I think that the Niners, I think I'm being objective here. I think that the Niners, at least coming into the season, have the most interesting storylines between Jimmy and, now Deebo's back and of course the Trey Lance of it all. So yeah, I'm just super happy to be there for first year of training camp.
And as far as, people in the chat, we're going to get into Bill Russell passing. We're going to get into the Giants and all the happenings from the sports weekend coming up next. We're going to jump over to a different live stream for that. Hopefully Dan Coach Emilio will be over there. Will be joining us as well. Thanks to everybody who joined us for this live stream. Thanks to Rye. Thanks to Len. Thanks to Kyle. Thanks to all of you in the chat. And join us in a matter of moments as we will talk. What's that?
I'll send a link into the chat as well.
Okay, we can send a link right now into the chat so all the people that are currently in the chat can just jump right over.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do that. Do we need to wait a second then before we hit the close? No. Okay, so here we go. We'll hit our close. Thanks to everybody who participated. And that was a recap of, week 1 of 49er training camp. They put the pads on for the first time tomorrow in Santa Clara, and our cameras will be there throughout the week. So keep it locked on the Krueg Show throughout Niner training camp and the regular season as we bring you top flight video and audio from camp and the season from start to finish. And that does it for this edition of the Krueg Show.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you asked for. Here for whatever you bring me, getting handled. I answer to no one, I don't need to hassle. Yeah, we ain't never fall back.